What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Dép Podcast. Joey Alfieri, Simon Tsalikis with you every day doing this show. And sometimes we ask for outside help, and we've got a star joining us. It's the first time that this is the first time that I get to speak to him. Followed his career in the NHL very, very closely. Was always a player that I enjoyed watching because A, he's local, and B, you get drafted late. You get drafted in the 7th round. You play 700 NHL games. That's a ton of respect for me anyway. And I always thought he was a really good player. Was hoping that he would come to Montreal. Maybe we can ask him how close that ever was, that came to happening. But we'll talk to Jason Demers, former NHL defenseman, now NHL Network analyst, in just a couple of minutes. But Tsalikis, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not much. I wore the short sleeves as homage to my Chicago Bears. I figured if the Bears can play outside in that type of temperature, I'm gonna follow it up.
Are you over it? Are you okay?
I'm relatively over it. Yeah, I'm not
Clearly,
over not wearing a sweater.
You're wearing an LA hat. I mean, I don't understand what's going on here.
It's a Dodger cap. It's a Dodger
cap.
Yeah,
I know, but still LA.
I'm a big Fernando Venezuela guy. You know what that is?
I know. Okay, you said his name wrong.
No, Fernando Venezuela.
That's not it. That's
Eric
definitely
Karros.
not it.
No, those guys.
Yeah, Eric Karros. That's how you say his name, but I'm pretty sure it's Valenzuela. Anyway, we will be talking Montreal Canadiens and all things Habs, and I want to ask our next guest, Jason Demers, about goalie fights. Jason, what's going on, man? Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, boys. Wow, a star is something I've never heard in my NHL career or my media career.
To me, you were a star. To me, you were a star. It was always fun watching you play. And okay, let's start there. How close did it ever come close to join the Canadiens?
I mean, it's something that I look back at now, and every time I go into the Bell Center, I kind of get goosebumps and calling some games, and even when I played and. You almost get a little fearful when you're younger and you're trying to make your way. And I started in San Jose. So, you get used to being in a smaller market. And, not to say that like I didn't want to go there. I thought it would always be amazing. I grew up watching Canadiens games with my father, my grandfather. I remember sitting at the top of the stairs of my house when my dad would play the game, and I'd listen to Pierre Rude and all the iconic announcers in French and English. And I just used to have that's what I grew up watching. So like to me to have played there, so, would have been amazing. So it's kind of like when I look back at my career, I'm like, I wish I would have got there. It just never kind of lined up. Montreal never kind of showed any interest in me. And I was kind of like, always like, okay, it just never really, sometimes it just has to fit, and you got to fit the mold of what they need at that time. But it's funny because once I retire, everybody's like, we need so many right shot defensemen, and they're in need. And I'm like, what the hell, where was this when I was playing?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess
hold on. Jason played some small markets, but Simon, I'm going to tell you exactly like the list of where he played, and you tell me what these cities all seem to have in common. Okay, San Jose,
yes,
Dallas, Florida, Arizona, and then a short stint in Edmonton/Bakersfield. So take Edmonton away.
Yeah, so the moment Jason left any city that goes to -20 between the month of November to March, this guy said, I'm getting paid, I'm out of here.
I'm done.
So I guess it must have been tough. They're suffering all those years in lovely San Jose. Before we get into the Habs, just about that young Shark squad, man, when you tune in and watch these guys, you look at Macklin, Celebrini, and you're thinking to yourself, my goodness.
Yeah, this kid's special. It's always tough because, I grew up in the NHL playing on the West Coast. So, my dad had to stay up and watch games at 1 a.m. And I'd come home and to Montreal, people would almost be like, oh yeah, you played in the NHL. Oh, that's cool. Like, oh, San Jose. Like it doesn't even like sometimes go into the brain that there's an NHL. Goodness. There's NHL out West until like you're there and you see this kid though that's generational, and I say that word. I don't say that word loosely because I do think he's generational. He's a little bit like Sidney Crosby in the way he moves and competes, and it's weird because when you get a player like that, you think, oh, we have a 3 to 5 year rebuild, and you're like, holy shit, this just got sped up by a year or two. So as a GM, you're kind of like, wow, do I sell the farm now to like back this kid, or do we really have to like relax and take our time and make sure we kind of build into this? Because Yeah, he's something special, man. Night in and night out. It's fun to watch him, and it's fun to, call some of the radio games when I got to call him last year, and then I'm going to do some games with them in March. But he's must see TV.
Very cool. I figured you knew I was going to go here, and I think you knew what you were doing when you tweeted this out there on X. But January 4th, 2026, the tweet reads, the Montreal Canadiens are going to win the Stanley Cup in the next 5 years. And then you followed that up with Michael Hayes on the way as well with some center depth. I'm just curious, when you watch the Montreal Canadiens, what specifically do you like? What specifically what indicates? What are the indications to you that they're going to be a team that can win a championship in the next 5 years?
Well, it's always top down, with me. You look organizationally and you need a good owner. Canadians have that. You need good management. They have that right now with Hughes. You need good coaching. For right now, you got Marty, and he's been a great developer of young talent on this team. There's some guys that I feel like he really unlocks a lot of the offensive guys. And then you need a depth of talent. You need a lot of young guys that kind of grow into the system that are under the right types of contracts and deals. And you kind of see that with the Montreal Canadiens, and obviously you want to start goaltending right now. You could be upset at Montembeault and he kind of struggled. You got Dobish, you got Fowler, you got three goalies that I do believe one of them will take the reins eventually. And there's some teams that don't have one goalie that could be a starter. You have three potential number one starters. So it's just going to be a matter of time and development. You look on the back end, you have Matheson, you got Dobson and Hutson. You got a great core three. Your fourth is kind of up in the air. Caden Goalie, who can at times be that guy, a little bit of injury problems. So if you can get back to that, you got a good solid four, and you got some young guys that are coming up as well. And I think they draft really well, Montreal. They have the past 5-6 years drafted really well. And then you really went up the middle. So up the middle, when you got Suzuki and you got Hage that's coming in, those are two core foundational centermen. And then from there, you can just kind of fit pieces around that. And I think they've done a good job with that. You're going to have some contracts, some aging contracts kind of coming off the books soon in the next couple of years. So it really is like in that Eastern Conference, the Atlantic's becoming a very tough division. It always has been with Florida and Tampa, but now you're getting, the Montreals, the Bostons, the Torontos, like these teams that are competing year in and year out. So I really do think, though, like just looking at Montreal and watching the brand of hockey they play, I kind of always go back to Paul Maurice in the last couple of weeks. When they talked to him, he just said, Montreal plays a new brand of hockey. It's a little bit of a hybrid. It's not this like run and gun, but there's a little bit of zone defense to it, but it's very high freewheeling, very loose in the offensive zone. And I think that's something that a lot of teams aren't used to defending. And because they have a lot of guys that are just very skilled offensively, and I haven't even mentioned Demidov and Slavkovsky and these guys at Caulfield. You can just, the list of talent is there. And they're developing on the right. I said 5 years to give myself, I call that the media leeway.
Yes.
To not put myself out on a limb. I'm like, 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say next year, because if it's next year, then I'm great. I'm within my window.
Yes.
And then if it's 5 years, I can blame it on the GM and port management.
That's it.
I can blame it on the media.
Perfect.
The media in Montreal that they screwed them over. But I just, you have some budding stars. And I just see that if these stars can take that next step that I think they can, which, it's very difficult to do that, but you look at a Slavkovsky who I believe has unlocked something this year in himself, and you can see it, and it's coming, and it's like, people, I kind of went back, people were a little disappointed with him, but he's such a young, big body that you cannot find that in the NHL nowadays that can move and put pucks in the net like that and get to the net. Like the young the kids, the youth that's coming up, there's not many like him. He's a 101, and it's I think when that development finally hits and he matures in his game, and I think that's what you're seeing is a level of maturity in this Montreal Canadiens team, because they have all the talent. And I think, like I said, St. Louis is a great coach to kind of shepherd that. But I think once the maturity hits and they just figure out how to win consistently, playing the right way and not cheating on the defensive side of on the offensive side of the puck, I just think they're going to be very dangerous. And they kind of have that you look at, I mean, the game tonight, I think they've Cole Caulfield scores. They have game breakers, and game breakers can get you to the finals and get you through a couple rounds just because you'll get held in games and you have these guys that can score on a whim, and you need that to kind of get to the finals. You need guys that can score in big moments, and they have that, I think, in spades.
So just go back to the coach here for a second. So, I don't know, Joey, if you were still with TSN 690 at the time. I was still there, and the word comes down, Martin St. Louis. Like, I gotta say, I've known him my whole life. The guy, his dad actually lives down the street from me. He's a gold medalist, Stanley Cup champion, one of the best stories in hockey. But I like a little bit of outside of the box. Some of the things sometimes, Jason, you guys that, coached when you were, young, and they're still around and still getting kind of booted around, and you're thinking the one from the major sports, sometimes hockey's the last one to go outside of the box with a head coach hiring.
But they've gone in like, just to sorry to cut you off, but like they've gone pretty outside the box with this whole thing. Like, I'm not gonna say Jeff Gorton is outside the box, but they went with an Anglo. Kent Hughes went agent to GM, and Marty St. Louis was coaching his son's Pee Wee team.
A good Pee Wee son. Yes, let's not kid
A
ourselves.
good Pee Wee team. Gotta preface that. Good Pee Wee
So
team.
just when that news comes out, the ex-player, but also, Jason, maybe you take us inside that locker room. Like, how does a locker room handle that? Like, I get they all respect Martin St. Louis. How can't you? But, when you hear that come across the wire, that's your next head coach, like, how does that work in a locker room?
Yeah, listen, I always kind of, when I came in the league, I realized quickly, like, listen, you could be a Hall of Fame player, but sometimes it don't translate to coaching because a lot of coaches don't know how to communicate the way they saw the game to players that can't do what they do physically, because a lot of it's just ingrained in you. It's embedded in you. You look at, one of the greatest players, arguably the greatest player of all time is Wayne Gretzky. He didn't have a lot of success coaching, and people go, well, why was that? Bad teams or bad players. No, Wayne Gretzky can't really teach how to be Wayne Gretzky, and he can't really communicate and relate to a third line player that maybe all they can do is chip a puck in and out. And now you can play a long career doing that, but if you can't communicate to your bottom lines how to play the right way and how to kind of build a roster, it's not going to work no matter how good of a player you are. So Martin St. Louis comes in, he's this highly offensive guy, but if you watch his career, the way he had to get around the league back in the day, and he's one of those guys that kind of transcended eras. So he learned how to adapt within the NHL. So that in itself is easy to teach to players, being like, listen, I was a small guy. I had to figure out how to play in a big man's game. And then once the game got quick and a little bit smaller, I was able to kind of find my game. So he's able to kind of teach guys. And I think that's where people get hung up on, like, well, if he's a great player, he's going to be a great coach. It's like, that does not work that way, because coaching and being able to explain and get your message across is so difficult, I think, especially to the younger generation now that are coming in the league. You got to be a psychologist as well as a coach for each individual kid. And he's proven to be able to do that, especially with the offensive guys, but he's been able to get a lot out of the bottom six guys. And, you look at the Kapanens and you look at the Jake Evans and you look at these guys that he's been able to kind of, find space for them. And I think he's still evolving as a coach, because I do think at times there's certain players I think he could use better. Arbor Xhekaj is one that I think needs to be given a little bit more confidence. And I think there is another level there, and he might just be the odd man out with this group. But, it's just, I think he's done a fantastic job of teaching and also letting guys and letting the young guys be young guys and play and kind of let them be free, but also be like, listen, you have to play the right way at times. And if you don't, you're going to get a whack. And I think that's that line he's kind of been towing. And I think when he first came in, he was like, listen, I don't care if I think I remember one of his press conferences, like, I don't care, if we lose a game, we win a game 6-5. It's like, we're going to be exciting and score. And now he's kind of realized, like, oh, we have something here. I got to teach some fundamentals of defensive hockey, as well as learning how to play with the lead and learning not to give up too many chances and go play in an all out, just back and forth pond hockey. So, and I think he's done a good job of adjusting, and I think he's learning as well as with these young guys on this team. And I think that's proven to be beneficial for everybody.
What's your level of concern with, it seems whenever they play a heavy team, it seems like they have a hard time. Like, it's clear. I mean, Ken Hughes came out a couple weeks ago and said, they want to add some playoff experience. They want to add some size and some grit. It's easier said than done. But what's your level of concern with, the lack of size and physicality with this group, short and medium term?
Yeah, you've seen with the gold standard right now is the Florida Panthers, and you saw how they won their last two cups. They won, they won with skill, but they won with bullying teams and getting under teams' skin and leaning on teams. But I think it's finding guys that, just aren't afraid to get into the battle. And I think they do have some of those pieces, but you can always use more of that. So, them bringing in Phil Danault is somebody that initially you may not think, well, he's not a physical guy, and he kind of was struggling in LA and some injury problems, but it is somebody at that price point that understands how to play in the tough moments and in playoff games and can get under sticks. And he's not afraid of the battle, even though he's not the biggest guy. So it's learning how to use your leverage. So I think it's just it's not losing your identity, but also making guys understand that winning is hard. It's the hardest championship to win is the Stanley Cup, and you can't do it by just, you have to do it in every which way, and there needs to be sacrifice from top to bottom. Your best guys to your fourth line guys need to learn how to sacrifice on the physical side of the puck, as well as, maybe giving up a few points to block a few more shots. And there's just so much, but I always found is, team toughness is always the thing that I think for this team is what's going to get them to the finals and to a Stanley Cup, is they have to be able to weather that physicality. And when they get their opportunities to make a team hurt offensively, whether they get, they draw a penalty and they're on the power play, that they got to score on that power play, because that's the best way to kind of negate and fight against, if you're not the, toughest team, is to make sure that your power play, you're scoring when a team kind of blinks and gives you that opportunity. So, and then just, defending as a group of five, it doesn't matter in this league. You don't have to drop your gloves every time, but make sure that when you're in a battle, you're tough to play against. You're given a shot. If you're getting one, you're giving one right back. It doesn't matter if a guy's 6 feet tall, 6'5", 220 pounds, he gives you a shot, you give him one right back. You don't have to drop your gloves, but you don't back down. And I think that's something that they're going to need to really learn if they want to go on a long playoff run.
Yeah, we saw that a couple of nights ago with Vincent Desharnais and Matthew Tkachuk going at it all the way up the ice. So good on him on the young man just pushing back. It's interesting about the physicality of this team, right? It kind of seems like teams that are heavier give them problems, but then you look at their last 7 games against the Florida Panthers, they're 7-0. But Jason, you'll be the first to tell us that it's a completely different beast in the playoffs, and specifically, the Panthers kind of built for that playoff hockey. Jason, Joey and I, Joey, what'd you play? Bantam double B? Was that it? Not even. Joey didn't even get the Bantam double B. You played at the highest level, so I need your eyes to tell me. I marvel, but I'll go fanboy here. I marvel when I watch guys like Lane Hutson play. Quinn Hughes, great comparable. Cale Makar. I've tried to make the case that he's the best player in the world, but the guy in Edmonton keeps doing freakish things. But just talk to us about Lane Hutson, and you're watching him play, and you look at his 2 years thus far in the NHL, undersized, all those things, kind of neglected at the draft, and
overlooked by Team USA,
and he scored against the Minnesota Wild brass there on a one-timer to remind them that he's not on Team USA. But what have you thought of his game, man, and the way it's developed over the last year and a half?
Well, I'll say a few things. If I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, I am very happy that he's not going to the 100%, Olympics.
Yeah.
So he's healthy for the. And here's the thing I tell, and I've had a lot of these conversations with people is, yes, is he deserve it to be on the USA roster? 100%. I think he's deserving to be on the USA roster. But when I look at usage of what he's going to do, there's tiers in the NHL of defensemen. I always put Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, I think, are in a league of their own. And then you kind of have the Miro Heiskanens, the Slavins, the Hudsons, the Bouchard. Like, you have the rest of these top 20 defensemen, I'll say. But again, when you go into the Olympics, if you're Lane Hutson and if his dad listens to the show, which I'm sure he does, is a great podcast and show, is he's not going to play. Quinn Hughes is going to get all that ice time.
Yes.
So what is he going to be left with? Scraps. I think he's going to be there in the next one and the one's future, and they're going to find a way because I think he's going to be undeniable. But I just love the way he plays. I think Quinn Hughes is a good comparable to him. I think he's one of those guys that when he grabs the puck in the offensive zone, everybody kind of holds their breath because he's going to do something. And he's just a nightmare for wingers. Wingers, you'd hear guys in the room, before games, and you play a guy like Cale Makar or these shifty defensemen, and they'd be like, gee, like I got to go cover him. I'm just going to stand next to him tonight and not let him get the puck, because if he does and he's got space and I'm tired, he's going to make a fool out of me. So, I think he's done just an amazing job in the offensive zone, and I think he's handled himself well defensively, well enough. I think he's going to be a guy and a D-man that I think they're going to have to find a partner for that can grow with him, especially and take a lot of the heat defensively. You look at like some of Quinn Hughes' best years, and I'm not saying, and this was, 5 years ago, but some of his best years with Luke Shen, with guys that are physical, can get into the battle. You look at Adam Fox in New York, and they bring in Vladislav Gavrikov, and he kind of has a resurgent year before his injuries. But it's just having a guy that kind of pairs well with him. So if I'm, Hughes and Gordon, I'm looking for that guy to bring alongside Lane Hutson and have him be with Lane for 5-6 years, just be together. And he's shown that he could play. He's played well with, Carey at times, and you have Goalie, and you got these guys that kind of slotted in and out, and Struble. But, I really do think they got to find a right-handed defenseman, maybe Jason Demers, but I'm a couple 2 years too old. But a guy that can be physical, that can kind of help him on the defensive side. Because again, it only gets harder once you get to the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, like you said, they're 7-0 against the Panthers. But if they're playing a 7-game series against the Panthers, Lane Hutson's name, if I'm in that locker room, is circled 17 times.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, when you're on the ice, you are hitting him. I don't care if he has 4 points tonight. By game 4, his shoulder is going to fall off and he's going to be hurt. So you have to find a guy to help him get through those moments. And I think that's, for me, if I'm the Canadiens, priority number one, because you got a star. You got to protect that star.
I remember with Paul Maurice, right? We've all seen the clip where I'm not going to cuss here, but when he called his players the F word, and he told them pound their F and D. So in game 6 and 7, that was a great clip.
Yeah.
To go back to the Team USA, like if I'm Bill Guerin, I ask him to come on the flight with me. I don't know if they fly Alitalia, Joy, but I would literally tell him, dude.
Delta.
Like Delta, America.
They're not flying as, that's for sure.
So,
they're not flying Air Canada Rouge.
No, they're not. So I would just tell him, listen, you're not going to play a single minute, not a minute, unless Quinn Hughes pulls a groin, tweaks an ankle, or nothing like that. Because just to prepare your team, because we saw Canada play without Cale Makar, right? The one game, they don't look like the same team. The final game, gold medal game, call it what you want. They had an answer for McKinnon. They had an answer for McDavid. Americans didn't have an answer for Cale Makar because there's nothing like him. So I would have told them, listen, you can come to Italy. You want to go to the Amalfi Coast, knock yourself out. It's not
close.
But I don't need it.
That's not far.
It's
Rome.
not far.
Go to
It's
Rome.
not close.
Can you go to Rome? I'm just saying
go to Rome if you
that,
want.
dude, do whatever you want for the Olympics. If you're watching the game and you see like Quinn Hughes head to like the blue tent like in football, you're gonna play. That's the part that I don't get.
There's nothing going on in the Amalfi Coast right now, man.
I'm sure it's still pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty, but it's too cold
Whatever.
out there still. Yeah,
He's taking a free trip to the Amalfi Coast.
Sure.
Good things. Could be
I don't
worse.
think he needs the free trip. I think he's okay. Last one before we let you go, Jason. I'm curious. I know you were tweeting about Nedeljkovic and Bobrovsky the other night. I'm just curious. What's the closest you've been to a goalie fight? Have you seen one? Like, were you? I think Nabokov dropping love. That was before you, no? In San Jose?
Yeah, that was before me. Yeah, the closest I've seen was, and it wasn't even a goalie fight. It was just when that Darcy Kemper.
Oh yeah.
When I was in Arizona, he was going after Matthew Tkachuk and trying to fight him and throw him around. And that's what makes hockey great. Just good old fashioned fisticuffs with the goalies. And my favorite part of that is like if they showed the shot of the bench, the Sharks bench. And like all these young kids are losing it because I think it was like in a row. It was like Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, Michael Misa, Chernisov. It's all these like 19-year-old little piss ants. And they're just so excited. They're like kids at school, like, oh my God. They're high-fiving. And I'm just like, that's what it's about. Like, that's what we grew up that's old school hockey. And I don't care how offensive a kid is or how much we teach kids about toe drags and spinoramas. Like, we all as fans and players get excited when we see that kind of stuff, because that's what makes like our game so good, is just that passion. I mean, two goalies that, you know,
Bobrovsky's got like 2 cups and a Conn Smythe.
Chucking nucks.
Yeah. Bobrovsky's got like 2 cups and a Conn Smythe, and the guy's coming like in the middle of January, game number 52. He's like, screw it, let's go. I don't care about my cups. I don't care about my $10 million contract. That guy's got to get a beat down down there. That's crazy.
One-on-one, just 2 men going at it. You got to love it.
Right.
Are you spending much time around Montreal these days?
I come in. Well, my brother, you know, I'm gonna have to shamelessly plug my brother owns a bunch of bars in Montreal in the Vieux-Paul.
Oh, very nice.
Really?
And he owns and he owns a bar in Little Italy. So you guys are gonna have to film a live podcast.
Sure. 100%.
Yeah, no, because we're just Simon and I were just talking. We'd like to sit down for maybe a beverage or a meal. Well, Simon will pay the bill.
Fantastic.
And that's if you. I know you don't know Simon yet, but when Simon pays the bill, it's an event. I'm just telling you, it doesn't happen often.
Have you? Yeah, I mean, have you heard of Cold Room and El Pequeño and?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
those are my brothers.
Oh, cool! I had no idea.
No, okay, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, Barbello, little Negroni aperitivo.
Let's go.
Beautiful.
Let's go. Is are you half Italian or just?
We traced. We did the 23andMe, and we're like Italian and Greek and all that.
Let's go,
Okay,
Jason.
so
let's go.
You both Italian and Greek.
Fantastic.
All right, so you're welcome.
I'm going to bump him right behind Chris Chelios as the number 2 second best.
Technically, he's Greek former NHL.
Number 2 greatest Greek defenseman right behind Chelios.
Efraristo.
This guy's amazing.
Goodness.
This
Come
guy,
on, baby.
let's go.
Hey, he's not a star to the masses, but he's a star to me. All right, he's
That's
a
right.
star
That's
player
right.
to me. Hey, Jason, really appreciate the time, man. Thanks for doing this, and hopefully we can talk to you again real soon.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks,
All right,
Jason.
former NHL defenseman and current NHL Network analyst Jason Demers. He's
Awesome.
phenomenal. I think, like, to me, all kidding aside, I think media-wise, I think he's gonna be
home.
a household name.
Yeah. He's very good. Very,
soon
very good.
because he's just the words just.
It's
come
good,
out
man.
way
Good
too
story to
easily,
tell her.
and he breaks the game
Absolutely.
down
And
super
he
well.
knows the game, right? He's breaking down Adam Fox's partner. No disrespect. I wasn't sure who's Adam Fox's partners with the Rangers, but good on Jason for. He's a great follow on Twitter as well. So if you just track him down on Twitter, I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, especially as a Canadiens fan because he's buying into the hype.
Joey, he's a West Island boy.
Dorval, yeah.
Dorval, okay.
Yeah,
good. Could I say also Lakeshore Lions program?
That's a
Sorry,
phenomenal
Catch, put you on the
question.
spot.
I'm
I would
not
imagine, no.
1,000% sure. I know he definitely played in. I've got it here. He got played in Moncton and Victoriaville, but I don't remember.
Is it still Tigre, the Victoriaville?
Yes.
That's
Sam. Now you're talking Sam's language now.
Let's go.
You're talking Sam's language now. Yes. Let me try to figure this out for you very quickly because we do have to take a quick break.
Yeah. No, let's take that break.
Demers played in the 2001 Quebec tournaments with minor ice hockey team from the West Island. Doesn't give the specific name. Now I'm curious.
Okay. We got to go.
Okay, we got to take a break. We're announcing we're going to do a new segment that we're going to do a couple times a week. It's a collab. Look at us, Simon, collabing with Habs Infinity on Instagram. Give them a follow. Great page. Tons of Habs content. Basically, the way this is going to work is they're going to throw us a question. You and I are going to discuss. And we're going to put our brains together and try to answer their Habs-related questions as good as possible. So we'll be back very, very quickly after a short break with our Habs Infinity / Sports Dép question of the day.